This was from a dressing gown worn by Nicola Coughlan, aka Penelope Featherington. But what makes this really special is that it is signed from both Phoebe Dinevor and Regé-Jean Page. Hi, I'm Julia Quinn, and I'm inviting you in to see my personal library. This is Shelf Portrait for Marie Claire. One of the most exciting things for me about being an author is seeing my books translated into so many different languages. And so I keep a lot of them on the bookshelf here, and it's just so much fun for me. This is Danish. These are some new collections in French. Back here, well, actually this is Dutch. This is a box set for Brazilian Portuguese. Got some Spanish here. And then these are just some very special English editions that I have. And we've got Thai and Korean and Japanese. So I'm gonna share with you one of my most prized possessions. It's this. Yes, it's The Duke and I, which I wrote, but this is a very special copy because, for one, my bookmark is a scrap of fabric from the actual show. This was from a dressing gown worn by Nicola Coughlan, aka Penelope Featherington. But what makes this really special is that it is signed from both Phoebe Dinevor and Regé-Jean Page. So sometimes you buy a book just because you see it in the bookstore and it totally cracks you up. And that is why I have purchased Crap Taxidermy. This book is so funny. I could open to any page and it will just make you die laughing. It is just the world's worst taxidermy. My entire family adores it. My mom just cleaned out her basement and we found one of my favorite books from when I was growing up. It is Louisa Alcott, Girl of Old Boston. It is a biography of Louisa May Alcott, and it is so much fun to look through because you can see my old address I wrote in. That's my handwriting from when I was a little kid. And it's so beautifully illustrated. I have to find one for you. All in these great silhouettes. I read this book so many times as a child. Far more times than I actually read anything that Louisa May Alcott wrote herself. I love graphic novels and graphic memoirs, and one book that I have purchased so many times recently because I've given it as a gift to just maybe not dozens of people, but a lot of people, is They Called Us the Enemy by George Takei. It is a memoir of his time in an internment camp during World War II, and it is just so moving and told in such an accessible manner. Everybody should read this book. This is one of my most treasured possessions. It is an autographed set of March, which is a 3-part graphic memoir by Congressman John Lewis. And I met him at the American Library Association conference a few years ago, and he signed this for me. I think everybody should have some comics in their collection. Certainly we all need a little Calvin and Hobbes, but one that I really like is by Grant Snyder, I Will Judge You by Your Bookshelf. It's a collection of comics about books and reading, and they're just so much fun. I often share these on social media, and so when I saw that he was having a collection, I knew I had to buy it. I actually read books both paper and electronic, and it's actually kind of funny because there were some books I wanted to recommend, and I searched my whole house to find a copy, and then I realized it was on my e-reader. So for example, Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple. I love that book so much. Especially because Seattle, my city, is such an important part of it, and she gets everything right. But I don't have it to show you because it's on my e-reader. Here's another author I really love. I think I've read everything that she's written. It's Jenny Lawson. She has a blog called The Bloggess, but she also writes books, and this is her most recent one. I think it just came out this year, Broken in the Best Possible Way. She is so funny. I mean, shake the bed funny. But at the same time, she is incredibly moving. There's a section where she writes an open letter to her insurance company about all the things that they give her grief about. She has a number of chronic conditions, both mental and physical, and it just really gets you in the heart. And I think she's so smart and so wise, and I would really like to meet her someday. I love to read romance novels. That goes without question. I write historical romance. I love historical romance. If you follow me on Facebook, I actually recommend a historical romance every single Monday, but here are 2 authors who have new books out that I just happen to have here that I love. This is Sarah MacLean with Bombshell, and she writes books. They're just so fierce and feminist. I love them. And then I've also got a new one by Julianne Long, who's one of my favorite authors. She's so underappreciated. I don't know why everyone isn't reading her. You really should. Now, I also read contemporary romance, and one of my favorites is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. And this is going to be a major motion picture soon, so read the book now before you watch the movie. My father was also a writer, and he wrote for middle grade readers. And he wrote this wonderful book called Cheesy Mac, which is so smart and so funny and so my dad. And this was the first book, and this was, I think this was the last, and he passed earlier this year, and I am so grateful that kids can still get a taste of the type of person he was through the books that he wrote. And we keep these books on a very special part of my bookshelf here, which is just a section where I've got a lot of people who are important to me. I think that no library would be complete without The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Careful readers know that this is one of my favorite books. If you read Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, I have a little homage to it in there. Yes, in a Regency romance, I managed to reference The Hitchhiker's Guide. So like every book lover I know, I buy more books than I'm able to read in a timely manner. So this is just one stack of books I've purchased in the last month that I have not read yet, but I will. Or at least that's what I'm telling myself. But I have Mom Jeans and Other Mistakes by Alexa Martin. Super excited about this one. I love her books. This one was recommended to me. I don't know that much about it, except it sounds really cool. Finding the Mother Tree, Discovering the Wisdom of the Forest. I've also got Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I love The Martian, so I'm really excited to try this one. And then from Daniel James Brown, who also wrote The Boys in the Boat, Facing the Mountain, a true story of Japanese American heroes in World War II. And this has a big Seattle component to it, which I'm excited about because I live in Seattle. And then finally, The Secret to Superhuman Strength by Alison Bechdel, because we all love Alison Bechdel. So this is one of my favorite books of all time, The Last Days of Summer by Steve Kluger. It's an epistolary novel, which means it's written in letters and telegrams and ticket stubs and bar mitzvah programs. It's set in the early 1940s in Brooklyn, and it stars a wisecracking young 12, 13-year-old boy named Joey Margolis and the all-star third baseman for the New York Giants, Charlie Banks, and they end up becoming friends in this kind of bizarre way. And it is funny and heartbreaking, and it's this great example of how you can write a novel in such a different manner and have it be just perfect. Thanks for watching Shelf Portrait, and don't forget to subscribe to Marie Claire.